Alright, so I'm going to do a couple of videos on the Battle of Hastings itself. Going to start today by talking about events before the battle. Going to talk about Harold Godwinson's experience before the Battle of Hastings, and then talk about William's. There's only ever one question that comes up on the Battle of Hastings, and that is, why did William the Conqueror win, or variations of, assess the reasons for the Norman victory. Military factors the most important reason, Saxon weakness was the most important reason, the military strength, etc., etc. So it's a very, very straightforward question. So I think in order to score highly at it, you need to know the topic very well. Otherwise, it's just a Year 7 question, really. I ask Year 7s to answer this question. Why did William the Conqueror win the Battle of Hastings? So you need to know it in a lot of depth. So looking first at Harold, and of course the big news for Harold is he's aware that once he takes the throne that William the Conqueror is coming, William of Normandy is coming for him, so he raises the Fyrd. The Fyrd are, of course, the Saxon peasant army. Each Hyde, each hundred, has to supply a certain number of men to fight. This is called the Fyrd, F-Y-R-D. These aren't trained soldiers, they're not professional soldiers, but they are obliged to come and fight. So he raises the Fyrd and goes down to the south coast, awaiting William of Normandy. Meanwhile, and of course this is what makes it such a great story, isn't it? Meanwhile, in the north, his brother Tostig, Harold's brother Tostig, has joined forces with Harald Hardrada of Norway, and the Vikings have sailed a fleet to the north of England. So while Harold Godwinson is waiting in the south, the Vikings arrive in the north. The Vikings start doing what Vikings do best. They start pillaging and causing problems, and eventually they march towards York, where they meet the Northern Earls. This is Edwin of, am I getting this right? It's Edwin in Mercia and Morcar in Northumbria, and so the Northern Earls come to meet them, and they do battle at Gate Fulford. This is the first of the three battles of 1066, the Battle of Gate Fulford, where the Vikings win, and the Norwegians, let's call them the Scandinavians, and Hardrada and Tostig win a decisive victory. Harold Godwinson has got news of this, and he mobilizes his army very quickly. This is a real show of military skill, really, by Harold. We tend to sort of overlook just how skillful a war leader Harold Godwinson is, because we talk so much about what mistakes does Harold make. But actually, I mean, this is evidence here. Harold Hardrada is an enormously famous, powerful Viking warrior. He's travelled all over Christendom, really, and has an incredible reputation. So Harold Godwinson is very, very quick to go and face Hardrada, along with his own brother, of course, Tostig. And he marches his army north. So the army that's been waiting for William on the south coast, crucially, turn about and head north. And they surprise the Vikings at Stamford Bridge. I won't go over, I mean, we all know the story of the Battle of Stamford Bridge. They surprise them at Stamford Bridge. It's a crushing defeat for the Vikings. And this is really the end of Viking influence in Europe. This is the end of the Viking Age. So we tend to think about 1066 being the end of Saxon England, but of course it's more than that. This is the end of the great Viking period. So just another reason, really, to consider how significant a time this is, and how important this is. Both Hardrada and Tostig are killed at Stamford Bridge. Everything's going very, very well, and you know what's coming, don't you? Harold suddenly gets the news that 200 miles to the south, William of Normandy has arrived, and is harrying. He does a lot of harrying. William, he's big on harrying. He is harrying Wessex. This is Harold's own earldom of Wessex. So let's just switch this up now to think about what William's been doing while this is going on. So William's preparation for Hastings is undoubtedly one of the major reasons for his victory. He goes about it very, very meticulously. He raises mercenaries from all over Northern Europe, really. His wife Matilda is able to bring in a huge force from Flanders, and he also plays his genius card, really, which he sends Lanfranc. Lanfranc is Abbot of Bec. We know him well, of course, because he's going to be Archbishop of Canterbury in England later on. But Lanfranc at this point is this amazingly well-respected theologian. And he travels to Alexander II, and he secures papal approval. He gets the papal banner. This is the flag of the papacy. And by doing this, essentially what they're doing is they're making this war against Harold Godwinson a crusade. So this is a huge, I mean, this is the era of the Crusades, of course. This is an enormously important coup for William. And by doing this, he's attracting more soldiers. He's given them extra impetus to fight. Yeah. I think it's very difficult for us in the modern age to really understand quite how important that was. I know when I've spoken, I know lots of my nerdy class play games like Total War or World of Warcraft, this sort of thing, and this is the banner, the papal banner. The easiest way to think of it, this is a magic item. It gives you extra powers when you're fighting, and I think that's a wonderful idea there. So Lanfranc secures papal approval from Alexander II. This is now a crusade. At the same time as Lanfranc is off doing this, the Bayeux Tapestry shows this brilliantly. The preparation that William is putting into this battle. He's incredible, creating this huge fleet of ship, getting the horses onto the ship. We see the arms and the armour being made. William's army is phenomenal. We will talk more about the makeup of the different armies in the next video when I talk about the Battle of Hastings itself. But William's preparation here is huge. But of course for William, it's this great frustration. He's waiting to sail across the channel. It's getting later in the year, The crossing of the channel is getting more and more dangerous. We know from other examples, of course, I mean, the white ship disaster comes immediately to mind. It's very possible to die on this crossing. As the year goes on, it's getting less and less likely that he's going to be able to attack. But little does William know that this is really, really working in his favour. Because when, of course, the wind does eventually change, William sails across to England, and he discovers no Saxon army waiting for him because they're up north fighting against Hardrada and Tostig. And then William immediately sets about harrying and building castles. This is interesting, isn't it? Because this is exactly what he's going to do for the rest of his reign, is harry and build castles, really, isn't it? So it's funny, that's the very first thing he does. So this is the setup to the battle. You've got this motivated, professional force come over from Normandy. He's got the very bones that Harold swore on, this massive religious symbolism for them there. They've got the papal banner. You've got Bishop Odo with his great big stick, according to Bishop Odo. Against these, you've got 200 miles away in the north, you've got a tired Saxon Fyrd, who are now about to have to march 200 miles back down south, and fight the battle. Do they have to fight the battle is an interesting question, of course, isn't it? Which we'll think about perhaps next time when we think about different reasons for the victory. Is this Harold's great mistake? Did he have any choice? So we'll look at that next. Okay, thanks.